All right. So Terrence, you can take it away with the discussion.
Oh my gosh. Hi, everyone. How are y'all? You can give me a thumbs up. I can see you if you're doing good. Hello. Hi. So the first question that I'd like to start with is how does your RHA build its budget? I know that for Texas Women's University, our director of housing decides how much we get every year. So when she's going through budgeting, how funds will be allocated and distributed across the different branches of the department, she decides what housing is willing to give the organization. That's what happens at Texas Women's University. So hit me with your answers. Yes, Tesla.
Well, we have SSFAC, SSFAC. So I have to go in front of a bunch of people, board of administration, the people who are over all of the accounts all over the campus, the student body president, and a bunch of other people. And I have to present for 5 minutes on the programs and stuff I want to do for the semester, how much I would like for each of these things, and then just kind of hope that I get awarded for all of that. I don't know if any of y'all have ever had to do that or not, but it's really scary to me. So that's how we have to figure out our budgets before we even get our money. And then after we get money, then we kind of reassess things and like, okay, what can we do without and stuff like that. Because if we can't go over budget. We have to use all of our money, and if we don't use all of our money, we don't get as much money next semester. And I do that every semester. But that's just us.
Cool. Lorenzo?
Yeah, so at UCA, we're a lot like Texas Women's, where housing kind of determines how much we get. But our advisor and our assistant director that's over RHA both have to attend a meeting where they meet with the person over finance for the university and basically do like what Tesla does and like present the different programs that we did the following year and like show them the numbers and stuff to see how much we get. Because sometimes between the numbers, it can be decreased or increased.
Cool. Steven.
So here at Baylor, Campus Living and Learning decides how much we get every year, and it's a set amount, and then we have to use it because that funding we have for the previous year does not transition over to reset every year unless it's fundraised. So if we fundraise money, we get to carry that over to the next year. Otherwise, we have to use it, and then it gets reset every year.
Cool. Nicholas?
So ours is similar kind of to Baylor's and also kind of to UCA's, I guess, in a way. We have like a set amount, or we have like an amount that we get from Res Living, which I think, I'm not totally sure, comes from like kind of a similar process. And then with us, we have the stuff we fundraise through like OCM, for instance, that keeps and like rolls over. So we have like that amount, and then we have the amount we get each semester that is the same as like what Steven said, where it's spent and it doesn't roll over. So it's a mixture of the two.
Cool. So like now that y'all are saying like, when you fundraise, so whenever we do OCM stuff, we have a completely separate account. So like housing funds one account each year, and like it's all one unanimous account, and then we all just kind of use the same account number, and we know how much we're allotted. Our treasurer really makes sure that we're budgeting and keeping within the amount that we're supposed to spend. And then like for OCM stuff, like previously, like 5% of what we make from OCM goes to our separate account because we have like a Wells Fargo account. So it goes to that account. And then like 95% of it we give to a scholarship fund for something. I don't know what that scholarship is for, actually. No one's explained that to me. But anyways, cool. So the next question is, what processes do you take to budget for events? Are there any web tools / softwares that you use to help your board better manage your accounts? So at Texas Women's University, only full-time staff members are able to acquire a purchasing card. So when it comes to budgeting, a lot of that really does fall onto my advisor. My treasurer, she keeps up with how much we're spending, and we know virtually about how much left we have, but it's really up to my advisor to tell us, hey, you need to stop spending, or hey, this is too much. Generally, we get the notion that we need to spend more, we haven't spent enough. Our budget for the year is $70,000, and we still have $28,800 and something left. I am always skeptical about making a purchase. I'm like, oh my God, we can't do that. No way. So yeah, so that's kind of budgeting. I don't really want to say that we budget for events. We're just kind of we need to buy this, we're blessed enough to have a nice budget. And then web tools, really all we use to look at our budget is my advisor built a complete Google Sheet document, and it's kind of, Excel. So everybody is able to see it as it's updated. And that's really the only thing that we use for budgeting, to know how much we spent, not so much how much we're going to spend for a specific event. It's just how much do we still have to spend, if that makes sense. Yes. Okay, hit me with responses. How do you budget? What do you use? Nick?
So this year we did it the same way we've kind of always done, which is basically at the start of the year, we look at the budget amount that we have, we look at all the events that we have, and we basically just split it up into the events. And then that's just kind of kept track of by our advisor. Ours is the same way. Our advisors and coordinators have the purchasing power. They're the ones buying things, not us. So it's kind of similar in that aspect, but we do budget per event, and then we usually just use a spreadsheet per event, or at least I do. It's up to that officer to keep track of the budget for their event and make sure they're in budget. It's one thing that this year when we look back on it and we realize the parts where we run over budget, we're going to improve it next year by, using more spreadsheets and, accounting for things at the start that we co-sponsorships and sponsorships and things like that. So it's something that we're looking on improving, but that's usually how we've always done it, and that's kind of how we did it this year too. So
cool. Steven?
So as far as technologies we use Excel a lot to keep track of our budget. The advisors are the ones who mainly purchase things, but the officers can also make purchases and then be reimbursed from the budget. As far as budgeting for events goes, unless it's a really huge event, we don't necessarily budget for that event specifically. That's something that kind of needs to change. But we usually have about 6 to 8 events a year, and so the general rule of thumb is we look at our budget and then we'll basically say, okay, don't go over this amount in case we need it for some of the bigger events. So there's a, I guess, quote unquote cap for events, but we don't budget a specific amount for a specific event.
Cool. Lorenzo?
So much like everybody else, we use Excel as our software of choice. And our budget is set into 3 different categories. We have our programs that we put on. Then we have our delegate programs. Then we have office supplies, and we have a set budget for each one. And when we get receipts from the different housing directors, our treasurer then takes that, puts that in, so we can see how much we're spending out of each category, and it allows us to kind of move funds around as well.
Cool. Tesla?
Okay, so kind of like how I said before, how we have to come up with our budget before we even go ask for our money. Like this is literally what I go off of. I don't know if y'all can see it. Like beginning of the semester, we took everyone to Dallas Mavericks, and we had to say like how much our bus is gonna be, and how many tickets, and how much those are gonna be. Like everything's already broken down, and like I don't know if we even use Excel. I don't know. Honestly, personally, I don't know how exactly we keep track of all of this. Our treasurer kind of bailed out of from RHA about halfway through the semester. This semester, she was already kind of like halfway in and out anyways. And so someone else in housing actually takes care of it with my advisor, and I just get updated on things. I don't even really know. So I assume that we have an Excel probably, since everyone else has an Excel, but I don't know. We have two different accounts. We have our RHA account, which all of our fundraising goes to, and then we have our actual SissyFac account, which the $6,944 that we get, that's where that stays. And we also get help from our RA administrator. She helps out if we, because like I said, we have to use all of our money, but we can't go over our money or over our budget. So if we need, like, we bought a new bunny costume for our Easter extravaganza last week, and that was $400, and she went ahead and bought that for us, and we went ahead and bought the t-shirts for all of the RAs and all of the RHA people and all of the volunteers who helped that day. And that was like $300. So she helps out when she can. That's it. Okay.
Cool. So next question. What is your group's view on fundraising? How have you approached fundraising in the past? So at Texas Women's University, we just don't, aside from OCM, we just don't do fundraising. And it's more so because we have a healthy budget. So, I mean, I get a lot of emails from different people who would like for us to do some type of fundraising event with them, like to go to a restaurant or do something like that. But it's just something that I've never entertained because I didn't think it was necessary. But it's something that I've posed to the incoming board to think about. But yeah, so So what's your group's view on fundraising, and how have you approached it? So hit me. Lorenzo.
So here at UCA, we love fundraising. One of the main fundraising things that we do is like Papa John's is right next to campus. So we teamed up with Papa John's where like they have like a code that's like RJ Pacific, and like when people use that code, you know, we get some of the money back. But a lot of times we don't keep any of the fundraising. We kind of donate to, you know, different philanthropies, or we give it to another organization on campus who may be just starting out to kind of help them out just a little bit. And then besides for that, we've done fundraising with Tropical Smoothies, handing out flyers one weekend. We've like did fundraising for Easter's event at one of the churches. So like all the money that we get from fundraising always goes to another organization. It's very rarely ever kept for ourselves. And when we do keep it for ourselves, it's to like help us register more people for ROC.
Cool. Nick.
So we're also kind of in the mainly pretty much just OCM boat. One thing that I would kind of like to see it kind of go is us, maybe if we do any fundraising, going in the direction like Lorenzo said. We do on occasion, if we see opportunities where we can maybe help another group fundraise, we have done that. For instance, here next week, we're doing a thing where I'm personally volunteering, and you can pie me in the face for $5, and the money goes to another organization on campus to fundraise. So sometimes we just kind of try and help other people with fundraising, or we like partner with them on events, but we pretty much only do OCM at the moment.
Tesla.
Well, at TJC, we love fundraisers, and we just can't do enough of them. Honestly, we don't do a lot of them, but we want to. This whole semester, I have like my emails are half full of restaurants around Tyler asking me if I would like to do a fundraiser at those places, and actually tried. And one place, Jason's Deli, I think it was, didn't even email me back, and I was like, you know what, it's okay, we'll try again next semester because I'm too busy this semester. And but last semester we did a bake sale, and it was to help us go to conference, like to pay for like our gas and stuff to get to conference. And so it was really, really fun. But like I said, we only get like $6,000-$7,000 most of the time, and it usually covers most of what we need. And also, like I said before, we always get help from the RAs, administrators. So fundraisers are fun, and we try to do them, but we usually don't need to. I don't think. I don't know. Yeah, that's it. We like them.
Cool. So, in thinking about the last three questions that we just discussed, what in your organization would you say is your largest obstacle to being where you'd like to financially? So for TWU, I won't say that we're in a bad spot financially. There's just a lot of times where, like, some purchases I've wanted to make, but I can't because there's like a rule on it, or there's something like stating that this isn't able to be done or something like that, you know? So my biggest discrepancy with my budget is that I don't truly have full power over what happens to it. Like, as a board, we don't. You know, there's so many rules attached to what we can purchase and what we cannot, or who we go through or who we don't go through. Like, if I'm in, we have a building on our campus called Hubbard Hall, and anytime you do an event within the Hubbard Hall, you have to go through their catering. Like, I hate that because sometimes I don't want what they have, you know, like I would like to go pick a different menu, but I can't because I have to go through them. So sometimes it's the limitations that really get me. Like, I wanted to buy iPads to give out, but the university has a rule against buying iPads. So I know. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? But so yeah, that's really what upsets me the most about my budget, is that we don't really have free range to do as much as we would like to for residents. So, yep. Oh my gosh, I muted myself. Okay, Steven.
I wouldn't say we're in a bad spot financially as well. However, the thing we suck at is fundraising. The last two fundraisers we've had, we've lost money. Which kind of isn't the point of the fundraiser. Granted, we didn't spend a lot of money on that fundraiser, but we still didn't recoup it. We didn't even break even. So that's something that kind of needs to change, because that kind of, you know, defeats the purpose of the fundraiser. So that's something that we definitely struggle with most as far as our budget is concerned.
Lorenzo.
So, like you guys said, I don't feel like we're in a bad spot financially. Like, we get almost $30,000 each semester to spend, and like, what I would like to see the budget go more towards is, like, you know, we're all about programming, and we've had enough money to do the programs that we want to. So a lot of the money that we have in our budget just doesn't get spent, and I would really like to see that money go towards the residents who stay on campus. Like, if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be an RHA on our campus. So I like to see them get things like help them improve their halls, or get them like a new TV or a ping pong table, something kind of like, you know, to advocate for them, because, like I said, they make a lot of things happen for us.
Nick.
So, same thing to start out with. Overall, I think we're doing pretty good. This year, if I had to say the things that we kind of did poorly in, one would probably be we should have been more careful in our budget than we did. We did end up going over budget in the end, I do believe. And so next year, like we've already thought of, and we're already going to do ways to like help make that better. I'd kind of like to see a little bit more of our budget going towards things, well, kind of like what Lawrence said, or Lorenzo, oh my gosh, Lorenzo said, like improvements and stuff like that. And we could also probably improve in the fundraiser department as well. I don't really do a lot of them, but if we did them, I feel like there's probably room for improvement. And I guess kind of another stumbling stone for us too is we're in the kind of the same boat. We have to have our catering, any food we get at all, done like through our catering service, and it's not cheap. So that does sometimes end up kind of inflating our budget a bit because it's expensive and we don't have any other option. I mean, and we did have our pancakes and karaoke where we had close to 700 people show up, and ended up getting charged, I think, close to $7 or $8 a pancake. That event's budget just completely was way over because of that. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good, and I think we did better this year than we did the previous.
Okay, Tesla, give me one second. So Nick, like, I'm sorry, I have to ask this. Do they charge you after the event? Like for your catering? Like, is it a purchase after, or is there like an upfront cost that they added on to?
So kind of the only reason that event was so much was because it was basically, we didn't know how many people were going to show up beforehand. And then afterwards, when we were billed for all the people that did show up, it ended up being really, really expensive. And we didn't like account for that possibility of having that many people. So like that was one of our events that ended up going like pretty far over budget. So like in the future, we've planned to be more careful about things like that because we know like, that can happen and so on. But usually it's something where you know the amount beforehand. That was just kind of a special case.
Okay. I was like, oh my gosh. Tesla?
I guess we're okay financially. I mean, in the future, I graduate soon, so there's not much I can do for TJC, but I really hope in the future RHA can get to the point where we don't have to rely on the RA's funds. I mean, they have plenty of funds there, but I mean, if we can be like sufficient ourselves, that'd be nice. It'll just be hard to do with being RHA, with it being a 2-year school and RHA being a small organization and not really recognized all around campus. Like they're like, oh, what's the President's Hall Association? I'm like, oh, okay, like that's something everybody should know about because if you live on campus anyways, you should know about that. So like maybe one day in the future, if we get big enough and we have more bigger programs, we have programs all the time, we have big programs that serve the community, but if we had more of those throughout the year, maybe more people would hear about us, join us, and maybe we'll get so big they have to give us more money in CISIFAC. I don't know. I just like right now there is no plan and there's nothing I really dislike about our budgets or how we spend money. So I don't know. Just hope for the future.
Cool. So this is the last question. What tips and or advice would you give to those looking to build their budget? What questions regarding finance, budgeting, or fundraising do you have? I'll go last on this one. Let me think. So hit me. Tesla.
One thing that helped us, so I guess this is a tip. One thing that helped us is just to really sit down and plan. Like, what are some things that you would like to do? You're like, oh, well, we want to go to a basketball game. Okay, well, let's look how many tickets there are, cheap days, like do all of that in advance. Because like I said, I have to go ask for money. I don't just like, our housing doesn't give it to us and I don't have to just ask them. I have to ask a lot of people. So it's very strategic about our money and what we want. We have to be very precise. So just knowing what you would personally want to do and then look around for the best offers. And I don't know. that's it for right now. I feel like I wanted to say more, but I don't know.
That's cool. It might come back. Nick.
What I was going to say was kind of similar. Basically, this one thing that we learned is to sit down and think about maybe like some of the things you might not necessarily think about or you might forget. Like keep in mind that, you may have to buy t-shirts at some point for an event. You may be co-sponsoring events and something may come up where, you need a bit of your budget to help co-sponsor something. Things like that. So like try and account for those in the beginning, maybe, so that if they come up, you have that like extra budget there. And then, if they don't come up, you can turn around and use that budget maybe elsewhere. So, yeah.
Cool. Lorenzo?
So my tip is kind of for fundraising. I know if you guys mentioned that. One thing that I really suggest doing is going out there and talking to businesses that are around your campus. Like I said, we have a kind of fundraiser with Papa John's, and originally that started with them getting 90%, us only getting 10%. But after kind of building that relationship, and they saw that we were actually helping them make money, we got to now where I think it's close to 50% on that. And there's a ton of other businesses out there who are just looking for opportunity, especially to get involved in campuses, because campuses are like a way they can make a ton of money real easily. And then also, if you have like a Greek life on your campus, like reach out to some of them because they do fundraising all the time to get some of the things that they need, and they have connections with other people out there. So yeah, just go out and talk to people for those who really want to do better with fundraising.
Cool. Steven?
Kind of also talking about what Lorenzo was saying with fundraising, one of my tips would be do not plan your fundraiser last minute, because I know that's what previous e-boards have done, which personally I think is why they've fallen flat. If you're going to plan a fundraiser, you got to plan it well in advance. Kind of like with anything else you do for RHA. But definitely fundraisers, because if you don't plan that and then you spend money on it, you're just losing money. It's one thing if you're doing an event, because at least some people will come, and so it was at least a little worth it. If a lot of people don't show up, but it was still worth it to a degree. If it's a fundraiser and no one does, and if you're losing money, it's literally just a waste, and you might as well not have it. So that's my tip, is definitely plan it in advance.
I'll give Connor time to catch up. You'll hear me. Oh, he's caught up. Cool. So when it comes to budgeting and things like that, my biggest advice would be really don't allow your budget to be your limitation. A lot of times people will look at a number and decide that they no longer can do anything. But if being a drama major has taught me anything, it's that more than likely you can find a way to figure out the same solution that you want. You just might need to go a different pathway. My board is really big on thinking that we need the largest amount of something, or we need to buy the best of something, or that we need to pay someone to do something when we're perfectly capable of doing it ourselves, and then that saves us money. I think that's something really big that, in any meeting or any discussion about something, it shouldn't be a discussion of how much money do I have for it. It should be a discussion of what would I like to do, and then if we don't have the money, how can we still get to this same result, just in a cheaper scenario. That's my really big advice for budgeting. And then fundraising, I think that anytime you do a fundraiser, even if it's not successful, it's really important to have fun with it, because depending on what the fundraiser is for, fundraisers aren't always let me make the most amount of money. Sometimes it could be that, okay, we didn't make money. Now I gained something from this. Now I learned something from this, or now I understand how to go about this process in a better way, if that makes sense. So even though you lose money, or even though you didn't come out to where you wanted, now you're better prepared to attack it in the coming year or in the coming term, if that makes sense. So I always think that anytime we're talking about budgeting or we're talking about finances or fundraising, it should always be, even if it wasn't successful, what did I gain from this? Because each scenario in life is a learning opportunity, you know. So that would be my one little, I don't know, that was probably like 3 little pieces of advice. Anyways, that's my spill. Connor, do you have any advice on budgeting, fundraising, or finance?
Yeah, so definitely great discussion, everyone. I think that you brought up a lot of really good points throughout all of the discussion. And I have some things that I definitely like to comment on. I think that it's very common to have at least like 2 different accounts that you get your money from. Having an account for is the money that you get from your department, and then an account where your funds go, your fundraising funds, and that like one of them you have to use everything by the end of the year, the other one rolls over. But make sure that you understand which is which, and that your treasurer or finance officer understands those things early. And with a lot of those, as Terrence was mentioning, there are certain rules that apply to each account. Like some things can only be used for programming. Maybe you can't buy awards out of one account, you have to buy it out of another account. Maybe you can't spend on going to conferences from one account, you can only spend it from the other. So make sure that you know those things beforehand, and then you can plan out your budget accordingly for that. A lot of you were mentioning that you wanted to utilize your money not just for programming, but for, you know, more things, broader things. At my host institution, we call those capital improvements. So things like buying a ping pong table for the residence hall, fixing the potholes in a parking lot, putting up, you know, an extra TV in a lobby, stuff like that. They're capital improvements. The only thing that you have to think about with those, and it's with your whole budget, is when you're looking at a budget, you have to ask yourself, where does the money come from? So even if it comes from your department, where does your department get that money? If your budget comes from the people who are living on campus that year, whether it come from their housing fees or they have to pay a separate, you know, fee for your RHA, then you're going to want to spend a majority of your budget on that year's residents. So if you're going to buy capital improvements, like you're going to buy a ping pong table, make sure you're doing it at the beginning of the year so that the residents have the whole year to be able to utilize that. My freshman year, whenever I was on community council, we were looking to just kind of like spend our money because we had money left in the budget. We needed to spend it. So we bought a ping pong table, and it literally came in the week before finals week. So we were using that year's residents' money to buy something that they only had a week to use. So looking back on it, like, yeah, we needed to spend the money, but those residents didn't get to utilize that, you know, really cool perk. So we probably should have done that earlier in the year. So be thinking about those types of things. Where does your money come from? And they're giving you that money in order to get something back from it. It's an investment on their part. So make sure that you're, you know, returning on their investment in you. And trust me, you'll get back on that. You know, people will come to your programs, they'll come to your events, they'll recognize your name more, they'll recognize RHA more on your campus as you're doing more for them. Another thing that you might be interested in looking at is what SWCR and what NACUR practices. So at the end of the year, the ADAF of that current year creates the budget for the next year. So Patrick at RBC created the budget for 2017, 2018. So our budget for all of next year is already created. It's already planned out. And that's because Patrick, well, ideally, the ADAF would have spent near an entire year already in the position, already working with the budget that was created for them. So they should be pretty knowledgeable about how the budget works, what we've utilized things for, what accounts or what areas have too much money. We're really not spending in those areas. So next year we can probably lower the amounts in those areas and increase amounts in other places. Having someone who's more familiar with the budget like that plan the budget for the next year is usually a pretty good idea. So you might want to look at thinking that at the very least, having your current finance officer draft a template budget or draft a proposed budget for the next year. And then that way the new person can look over it. If they have new ideas or changes that they'd like to make, that's cool. But at least they have something that they're working off of. They don't come into a position not really knowing what to do, and they're expected to come up with a budget on their own. If you don't know how much money you're going to get until the summer, usually around like July 1, whenever the new fiscal year starts, you can still plan a projected budget based on what you think you're going to get. So yeah. Fundraising is important. As Terrence said, make sure that you're having fun, put the fun in fundraiser. And a lot of times people use funds raised and fundraising to go towards conferences. If you think about it, conferences most directly benefit the people who go to the conference, not necessarily your residents, not necessarily your department and the people who give you the money. It's really more of like a personal and leadership development opportunity for those individuals. So if you're looking at who's giving you the money and are you really being good stewards of that money, it makes sense to try to spend as little bit of that money on conferences as possible. So if you can fundraise, money to help defray the cost of the conference or even cover the whole cost of the conference, that will allow you to be a much better steward of your budget. So that way you're giving the most amount of money from your budget back into your residents and back into your department. Yes. And I think that's everything that I would have to say. So thank you, Terrence, for being able to facilitate this discussion for us. I think that it was absolutely amazing. We had a great discussion. And now we're going to move into open forum. So anything and everything that you all want to talk about, if you have more thoughts on finance, things that you've thought of, feel free to share them if you have questions. But if you have anything related to this topic or not, now's the time to share, ask, anything at all. Yes, of course, Lorenzo.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys have already heard from your NCC, but I really hope that your NCC did relay this information to you. But the University of Central Arkansas is going to be the host of RLC, if you guys didn't know. And we are really, really excited to have you guys come and see our campus this fall.
Yes, of course. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Congratulations, Lorenzo. Lorenzo will be the conference chair if you all didn't hear that. So congratulations to him. I know that you're going to do a great job putting on the conference next year. And I encourage you all to start conversations on your campuses about, is there a possibility that you all could host either regional leadership conference or regional business conference, whether it's, next year, 2, 3, 5 years down the line. Start the conversations. Kind of like the major thing that we've been talking about at this chat, planning and preparation is key for a lot of things. So you can't just plan to bid for a conference, even like a year out. You should start conversations ideally a year to a year and a half out. So start those conversations now. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's one of my favorite little quotes. Okay. Does anyone have anything else for open forum? Yeah, Tesla.
So I graduate in December, and I'm transferring to Texas Women's. So Terrence, watch out. So it's childish. So watch out. I will no longer be president for TJC after fall.
Well, that'll definitely be an awesome step for you. And I hope that I get to catch up with you. Hopefully, I'll be in the Dallas area after graduation, so I'll be able to just, a hop, skip, and a jump away from Denton. But yeah, awesome. Keep me updated with everything, you all. I think darn near, well, I guess half of us are graduating either in May or December, a little more than half of us. So, yeah, life keeps moving on. All right. Well, you all have, Nick.
Hey, Lorenzo, I'd say sorry for calling you Lawrence, and please still let me come to the conference, but I'm also graduating, but I'm still sorry for calling you Lawrence. But yeah.
Well, that was funny. He's going to pie you in the face. You're just going to see something flying through the air, and it's going to be a pie all the way from Central Arkansas. Cool. Well, you all have a great evening. Kaisha and I are going to go get some Buffalo Wild Wings because it's half off on Tuesdays. So you all have a wonderful evening, and I will talk with you